Martha had always lived with a smile that didn't quite feel like hers. For years, she'd gone without teeth, but it wasn't because she didn't care. It was a result of a combination of bad luck and unfortunate circumstances. In her younger years, she had experienced several accidents that damaged her teeth. Then, over time, dental care wasn't always a priority, especially as she dealt with other health issues. Eventually, she lost all her teeth, one by one. By the time she was in her 60s, Martha had gotten used to her appearance. She had a quiet confidence, but she often found herself hiding her smile, not wanting to reveal her bare gums. She had learned to live with it. She managed by using dentures, but they were uncomfortable and always felt foreign. She didn't speak about it much to her family, and most of her friends hadn't noticed either. Martha had a warm personality, and people loved her for who she was, not for her smile. Still, every time she looked in the mirror, she wished things were different. There was one thing Martha knew. It was time. After years of tolerating her uncomfortable dentures and avoiding the dentist, her family had finally convinced her to visit one. They didn't pressure her too hard, but their words stayed with her. "You deserve to smile again, Martha," her daughter, Liz, had said. "We want you to feel better." Martha, however, was scared. The thought of seeing a dentist after all these years brought back memories of her past visits. The dental tools, the strange smells, the feeling of vulnerability. It was enough to make anyone uneasy. But her family's encouragement was enough to push her forward. On the day of the appointment, Martha's nerves were on edge. She wore her best smile to hide the fear, but inside, her heart was racing. She sat in the waiting room, hands shaking, waiting for her name to be called. She kept glancing around the room, trying to distract herself. Most of the patients seemed calm, but she couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety building up in her chest. Finally, the receptionist called out, "Martha Hall." Martha stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. She was about to face a world she had avoided for so long. She followed the receptionist through the hall, her footsteps echoing in her ears. When they reached the treatment room, Martha hesitated at the door. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked herself. With a deep breath, she stepped inside. The dental room smelled faintly of antiseptic, but the atmosphere was calm and clean. The dentist, Dr. Carter, was an older man with a kind smile. His eyes were warm, and he greeted her with a friendly voice. "It's good to see you today, Martha. I'll make sure you're comfortable. Let's take a look at how we can help." Martha smiled back, though it was more of a nervous grin. She took a seat in the dental chair, feeling the cool leather against her back. Dr. Carter adjusted his glasses and began to examine her mouth, all the while speaking in gentle tones to ease her nerves. As Martha sat there, she realized something important. For the first time in years, she was taking a step toward change. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this visit to the dentist would lead to something better, something that would change her life forever. Martha's nerves didn't go away as Dr. Carter examined her mouth, but she tried to remain calm. She had spent so many years avoiding this moment, convincing herself that it was easier to live with the discomfort. But now, sitting in the dentist's chair, she knew something had to change. For a long time, Martha had told herself that she didn't need to visit a dentist. She had gotten used to the way her mouth felt, empty and uncomfortable. Her dentures didn't fit properly, but they were better than nothing. She had accepted it as part of her life. But over the past few months, her daughter, Liz, had been gently reminding her that it was time to take care of herself. "You've been through so much, Mom," Liz would say. "You deserve to feel good about yourself again." And so, after years of avoiding it, Martha finally agreed to see a dentist. The idea of getting her teeth back seemed like a distant dream, but Liz's words stayed with her. Maybe she did deserve to smile freely again. Maybe it was time to stop hiding behind the embarrassment of her missing teeth. As Dr. Carter carefully checked her gums and mouth, Martha could feel her heartbeat in her chest. She tried to focus on his kind voice as he asked questions about her medical history. "How long has it been since you've seen a dentist?" he asked. Martha hesitated, her cheeks flushing a little. "It's been over 10 years, she said softly. Dr. Carter nodded understandingly. "I see. Well, don't worry. You're here now, and that's what matters. We'll figure out the best way to move forward." Martha felt a wave of relief at his words. She had been so afraid of judgment, afraid that he would think less of her for waiting so long. But instead, he was kind and patient, and that made all the difference. He explained that her gums were in surprisingly good shape, considering the years of neglect. That surprised her, and for a moment, she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this wasn't going to be as difficult as she had imagined. Dr. Carter continued, "You've been through a lot, and we can definitely work together to restore your smile. I want to take my time with this, and we'll create a treatment plan that works for you." Martha listened carefully as Dr. Carter explained the steps that would be involved. He talked about dental implants, bone grafting, and how everything would be done in stages. "We'll start with some initial procedures to help your gums heal, and then we'll move on to the implants," he said. "It will take time, but the results will be worth it." Martha couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. She had never imagined that getting her teeth back would be such a long process. But the more she listened, the more she realized that it might be the best decision she had ever made. She had spent so many years hiding her smile and letting fear hold her back. Now, with Dr. Carter's help, she had the chance to change her life. As the appointment came to an end, Dr. Carter gave her a friendly smile. "We'll get started when you're ready, Martha. There's no rush, and I'll be here every step of the way." Martha left the office that day feeling a mixture of emotions, nervous, hopeful, and a little excited. She had made the decision to take control of her health and her happiness. It wasn't going to be easy, but Martha was ready. For the first time in years, she felt like she had a chance at something better. Martha's appointment had been scheduled, and she arrived at Dr. Carter's office on the day of her first procedure feeling both excited and anxious. She had spent the last week preparing herself for the journey ahead, mentally adjusting to the idea that it wouldn't be easy. But she was ready to face the challenge. Today was the beginning of her transformation, and she couldn't help but feel a tiny spark of hope growing inside her. When Martha entered the dental office, she was greeted with the same warm, welcoming smile from Dr. Carter that had made her feel comfortable the first time she met him. It was clear that Dr. Carter had a way of making patients feel at ease. His kindness was a reassuring presence in the sterile environment of the dentist's office. "Good morning, Martha," he said as she walked in. "How are you feeling today?" Martha smiled nervously, a little anxious, "But I'm okay. Ready to get started." Dr. Carter gave her a gentle nod. "That's perfectly normal. I'm here to make this as smooth and comfortable as possible for you. Don't worry, we'll take things step by step." Martha nodded, feeling reassured. She had done her research in preparation for today, but she still felt unsure about what to expect. Dr. Carter's calm, confident demeanor made her feel like she was in good hands. After a few minutes of chatting, Dr. Carter took a quick look at Martha's mouth again. This was a routine check before beginning the procedure. He smiled as he examined her gums. "I have to say, Martha, I'm quite impressed. For someone who's gone through so much, your gums are in great shape. It's clear that your body has been working hard to keep things healthy." Martha felt a burst of pride at his words. She hadn't expected him to say anything positive, especially after all the years of neglect. She had always thought of herself as someone who didn't take care of her health, but now, hearing Dr. Carter's praise, she felt like maybe she wasn't as far gone as she'd thought. Dr. Carter continued, "Because of how well your gums are healing, we can move forward with the initial treatment today. We'll start with a bone grafting procedure to help create a strong foundation for the implants." Martha nodded, trying to focus on his words. "Bone grafting. Is that painful?" Dr. Carter smiled reassuringly. "It's not too bad. We'll use local anesthesia, so you won't feel much. You might experience some soreness afterward, but nothing too uncomfortable. You'll be able to go home and rest for a few days." Martha felt a little better after hearing that. It wasn't going to be easy, but she knew that it was necessary for her long-term goal. Her heart pounded a little as Dr. Carter prepared the necessary tools, but she forced herself to breathe deeply and stay calm. As the procedure began, Martha lay back in the chair, her eyes focused on the ceiling above her. The sound of the dental equipment was loud, but it didn't bother her as much as she expected. Dr. Carter worked carefully and efficiently, explaining each step of the process as he went along. "Now we're going to place the graft material," Dr. Carter said as he worked. "This will help your jawbone heal and prepare it for the dental implants in the future." Martha nodded, doing her best to stay relaxed. She didn't know much about bone grafting, but she trusted Dr. Carter. He had a way of making the whole experience feel more like a routine than a major medical procedure. As the procedure came to a close, Dr. Carter gave her a smile. "All done, Martha. How do you feel?" Martha sat up slowly, feeling a little groggy but proud of herself. "Not as bad as I thought," she said with a tired smile. "Thank you, Dr. Carter." He nodded. "You did great. Rest up for a few days, and we'll check in to see how you're healing." Martha left the office that day with a feeling of accomplishment. She had taken the first step toward a new smile, and it hadn't been as scary as she feared. As she walked out of the office, she realized that sometimes the hardest part of a journey is simply taking the first step. And now she had already crossed that hurdle. A few weeks passed since Martha's first visit to Dr. Carter, and she began to feel the effects of the bone grafting procedure. While she was still healing, the soreness was much less than she had expected. The rest and care Dr. Carter had recommended seemed to be paying off. She felt stronger, and a sense of relief started to replace the anxiety that had once held her back. One morning, as Martha sat sipping her tea, she couldn't help but think about how much her life was changing. The idea of getting her smile back had seemed like a distant dream, but now it felt real. She was proud of herself for taking this step. Her family had been incredibly supportive, and they often checked in on her, making sure she was feeling okay after each procedure. Liz had even come over a few times to help her with the small things, like making her favorite meals and taking care of chores around the house. But as she sat there, the thought of her next appointment with Dr. Carter filled her mind. She knew that the next phase of her journey was approaching, the placement of the dental implants. She didn't know exactly what to expect, but she trusted Dr. Carter and his team. When the day arrived for her next visit, Martha felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She arrived at the dental office, ready to take the next step, but she had no idea what would come next. Dr. Carter greeted her with his usual warmth. "How are you feeling, Martha?" he asked as he led her to the examination room. "Better," she said with a smile. "The soreness is almost gone, and I've been following your advice. I'm ready for the next step." Dr. Carter nodded. "That's great to hear. Let's take a quick look and see how everything is healing before we move forward with the implants." Martha settled into the dental chair, trying to stay relaxed. Dr. Carter carefully examined her gums, his brow furrowed in concentration. As he worked, Martha couldn't help but wonder what he was thinking. Was everything healing the way it should? Would the implants work? After a few moments of silence, Dr. Carter looked up at her, a look of surprise on his face. "Martha, I have to say, I'm amazed at how well you're healing. Your gums are in better shape than I expected, considering everything you've been through." Martha's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure whether to feel proud or confused. "Really?" she asked, a hint of curiosity in her voice. Dr. Carter nodded, his voice filled with wonder. "Yes, the bone grafting was more successful than I anticipated. In fact, your body seems to be doing something quite extraordinary." Martha's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "Well," Dr. Carter said, "most patients don't heal this quickly. But your gums have started to form a natural barrier, almost like a protective shield over your jawbone. It's rare, But some people's bodies react in unique ways to procedures like this. In your case, it looks like your body is working hard to ensure that the implants will have the best chance of success. Martha was speechless. She had never imagined that her body could do something so incredible. All these years, she had felt like her health was something she had neglected. But now, she was learning that her body was resilient in ways she couldn't have known. Dr. Carter continued, "This discovery is exciting because it means that your implants should be even more successful than we originally thought. It's not every day that we see something like this." Martha couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride in herself. She had feared that her body was too damaged to heal, but now she realized it had been fighting for her all along. She smiled, feeling more hopeful than ever before. "Thank you, Dr. Carter," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I never knew that I had this kind of strength in me." Dr. Carter smiled back. "You're welcome, Martha. But this is your body doing the work. You've just taken the first step by trusting the process." Martha left the office that day with a renewed sense of hope. She now knew that she wasn't just getting her smile back. She was rediscovering her strength, and that made all the difference. As the weeks passed, Martha's body continued to show surprising strength in healing. After hearing Dr. Carter's news about her gums' unusual ability to form a natural barrier, Martha couldn't stop thinking about what that meant for her recovery. Every time she looked in the mirror, she couldn't help but smile at the thought that her body was working so hard to help her get her teeth back. It felt like a small miracle. Her next appointment came quickly, and Martha was more eager than ever. She was still amazed at the progress, and she couldn't wait to hear more about what Dr. Carter had discovered. When she arrived at the dental office, her nerves were almost gone. She was used to the office now, and Dr. Carter's calm, reassuring presence made her feel at ease. "Hi, Martha." Dr. Carter greeted her warmly as she entered the treatment room. "How are you feeling today?" "Better than I thought I would," she said with a smile. "I can actually feel the healing. It's not as sore as before." "That's great to hear," Dr. Carter replied. "Let's take a look and see how things are going." Martha settled into the dental chair once again, feeling surprisingly comfortable this time. Dr. Carter examined her gums carefully, making notes on his chart. After a few moments, he paused and looked up at her, his face filled with curiosity. "Martha," he said slowly, "I've been reviewing your case, and I'm truly fascinated by how your body is reacting to this process. I've seen many patients over the years, but what I'm seeing with you is something really unique." Martha sat up a little straighter. "What do you mean? Is something wrong?" No, nothing's wrong at all," Dr. Carter quickly reassured her. "Quite the opposite. What I'm seeing is that your body isn't just healing. It's actively strengthening the foundation for the implants. Your gums are responding in a way that I've only read about in rare cases. The natural barrier I mentioned last time, it's actually becoming even more solid. In some ways, it's as though your body is making sure that the implants will have the best chance possible." Martha's eyes widened in surprise. "So it's not just the bone grafting working. It's something even more." Dr. Carter nodded. "Exactly. The bone grafting did its job, but your body seems to be doing even more. It's as though it recognizes that this is an important process, and it's doing everything it can to support it. I've never seen anything like it." Martha felt a mixture of awe and wonder. "I never thought of my body like that. I've always been worried about my health, but maybe I've been underestimating myself." "You might be," Dr. Carter said with a smile. "Your body is doing something incredible, Martha. It's truly remarkable. I believe that your body has the strength to make this process work in ways that we don't always see." Martha sat in silence for a moment, absorbing what Dr. Carter had said. She had always been so hard on herself, blaming her body for things she couldn't control. But now, hearing Dr. Carter's praise, she realized that her body had been fighting for her all along, doing its best to repair itself. As Dr. Carter continued with his examination, Martha's thoughts turned to her past. She had spent so many years avoiding dental care, thinking that it was too late to fix things. But now, she was seeing that sometimes it wasn't about fixing things. It was about letting her body do its job and trusting the process. Dr. Carter finished his examination and smiled at her. "Martha, I think we're ready to move on to the next step. Your body is healing beautifully, and I believe the implants will work very well." Martha smiled back, feeling a new sense of pride in herself. She had made the right choice in trusting Dr. Carter and taking the first step toward change. And as she left the office that day, she felt more confident than ever that the journey ahead would be worth it. Her body was on her side, and that made all the difference. The day of Martha's implant procedure finally arrived, and although she had been through several steps already, this one felt different. It was the moment she had been waiting for, the day she would finally take a major step toward getting her teeth back. She was nervous, but this time there was also a sense of excitement. For the first time in years, Martha felt truly hopeful about her future. She woke up early that morning, her mind racing with thoughts of what would happen next. She had been through so many appointments, each one bringing her closer to this day. And now, the big moment had arrived. As she ate her breakfast, she tried to stay calm, reminding herself that she had come so far already. She had trusted Dr. Carter and his team, and now it was time to trust her body to finish the process. Martha's daughter, Liz, came over to take her to the dental office. "How are you feeling, Mom?" she asked as she helped her into the car. "I'm nervous," Martha admitted, but also excited. "I've been waiting for this day for so long." Liz smiled and squeezed her hand. "You're going to do great, Mom. We've all been rooting for you, and you've come so far. This is just the next step." Martha nodded, feeling comforted by her daughter's words. The drive to the dentist's office felt short, even though she had been dreading the moment. When they arrived, Liz gave her a quick hug before she went to sit in the waiting room. Martha walked into the office, where Dr. Carter greeted her warmly. "Hi, Martha," he said. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous, but ready," she replied with a shaky smile. "Let's get this over with." Dr. Carter chuckled. "I understand. Don't worry. We'll take good care of you. Let's start by making sure you're as comfortable as possible." The dental team led Martha into the treatment room, where she settled into the chair. The room, with its bright lights and soothing music, was familiar to her now, and that made her feel a little more at ease. Dr. Carter and his assistant went over the procedure one more time, explaining exactly what would happen. "We'll start by making small incisions in your gums to place the implants into your jawbone," Dr. Carter explained. "You'll be asleep during the procedure, so you won't feel anything. Once the implants are in place, we'll close up the incisions and give you some time to heal before moving on to the next step." Martha nodded, grateful for the clear explanation. The thought of being asleep during the procedure made her feel more relaxed. She closed her eyes as the anesthesia began to take effect. The last thing she remembered was Dr. Carter's reassuring voice. When Martha woke up, she was in a different room. She felt a little groggy, but not in pain. Dr. Carter was sitting beside her, smiling gently. "You did great, Martha. The implants are in place, and everything went smoothly." Martha blinked, still a little disoriented. "Is it over already?" "It's all done," Dr. Carter said. "You'll need to rest for a few days, but this part of the process went really well. The next step is to let the implants fuse with your jawbone, which can take a few months." Martha smiled weakly. "I can't believe it's really happening." Dr. Carter nodded. "It is, and you're doing wonderfully. We'll be here every step of the way to make sure you heal properly." As Martha left the office that day, her heart was full of gratitude. She had made it through the hardest part, and now all she had to do was rest and give her body the time it needed to heal. The road ahead wasn't easy, but it was a road full of hope, and for the first time in a long time, Martha felt like her smile was within reach. Martha spent the next few weeks resting and recovering after her dental implant procedure. Dr. Carter had told her that the healing process would take some time, and it was important to be patient. She followed his instructions carefully, taking the prescribed pain medication and making sure to keep her mouth clean. She even started eating softer foods to avoid putting too much pressure on her implants. At first, Martha felt frustrated. She was used to being active and busy, and sitting still for so long was a challenge. But as the days went by, she began to see the changes happening in her body. Her gums were healing, and she could tell that the implants were starting to settle into place. Even though there were still months of healing ahead, Martha felt a sense of accomplishment with each passing day. Her family, especially Liz, continued to support her through the process. Liz would visit her several times a week, bringing over homemade meals, helping her with chores, and keeping her company. Martha was grateful for these visits. They kept her spirits up during a time when she felt a bit isolated. One afternoon, as Martha sat on the couch with a cup of tea, Liz came over with a big smile on her face. "Guess what, Mom?" Dr. Carter called with good news. Martha looked up, surprised. "Good news? What's that?" Liz sat down beside her. "He said that your healing is going even better than expected. Your body is adjusting to the implants perfectly. He thinks we might be able to move on to the next phase sooner than we planned." Martha felt a rush of excitement. "Really? I can't believe it." Liz smiled. "I knew you could do it, Mom. You've come so far already. It's amazing to see how much progress you've made." Over the next few days, Martha couldn't help but think about the next step in her journey. She was finally getting closer to the moment when she would be able to see her new smile. For so many years, she had felt embarrassed by her teeth and avoided smiling. But now she could see the possibility of a future where she didn't have to hide her smile anymore. When the day arrived for her follow-up appointment with Dr. Carter, Martha felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. She had been waiting for this day for so long, and now it was finally here. Liz drove her to the dentist's office, offering words of encouragement along the way. "You're almost there, Mom," Liz said as they pulled into the parking lot. "Just a little bit longer, and you'll have the smile you've always wanted." Martha nodded, feeling more confident with every step. She had already faced so much, and now the final steps seemed within reach. As she entered Dr. Carter's office, she was greeted with a warm smile from the receptionist. The waiting room was quiet, and Martha felt her nerves ease a little. When Dr. Carter called her into the examination room, he greeted her with a cheerful, "How are you feeling, Martha?" "I'm doing well," she replied, smiling, ready to see how things are going. Dr. Carter examined her gums once more, carefully checking the healing process. After a few moments, he looked up at her with a smile. "Martha, everything looks great. Your implants are settling in nicely. I believe we're on track to get those final steps done soon." Martha's heart swelled with happiness. She was so close to her goal. Her new smile was right around the corner. She couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of pride in how far she had come. The road hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. And now, the finish line was in sight. The day Martha had been waiting for finally arrived. After months of waiting, healing, and visiting Dr. Carter, the moment had come to get her new smile. She could hardly believe it. It felt like it had taken forever to reach this point, but now she was just one step away from having the smile she had dreamed of for so long. Martha woke up early that morning, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. She spent a little extra time getting ready, wanting to look her best for the big reveal. Liz, as always, was by her side, offering words of encouragement and support. "You're going to look amazing, Mom," Liz said, giving her a hug as they got into the car. "I can't wait to see your smile." "I can't believe it's finally happening," Martha replied, her voice filled with a mix of wonder and gratitude. "It feels like it's been such a long journey, but I'm so thankful to be here." As they drove to the dental office, Martha's nerves began to settle. She had been through so much already: the bone grafting, the healing, the waiting. But today was different. Today, she was going to see the results of all her hard work. Dr. Carter had been with her every step of the way, and now she knew she was in good hands. When they arrived at the office, Martha's heart started to race a little. She took a deep breath and walked inside, where the receptionist greeted her with a warm smile. "Martha, it's so great to see you again. Are you ready for today?" Martha smiled nervously. "I think so," she said. "I'm excited, but a little nervous." "No need to worry," the receptionist reassured her. "Dr. Carter is wonderful, and you've been doing great. This is just the final step." Soon, Dr. Carter called her into the treatment room. He greeted her with a big smile, his calm presence instantly putting her at ease. "Hi, Martha. It's so good to see you again. How are you feeling today?" "I'm feeling good. A little nervous, but I'm ready," Martha replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Great," Dr. Carter said. "Let's take a look and make sure everything is ready for your new smile." Martha settled into the chair, trying to stay calm. Dr. Carter carefully checked her gums and the implants, making sure everything was healing properly. After a few moments, he turned to her with a smile. "Martha, everything looks perfect. Your implants have healed wonderfully. I think you're ready for your final step." Martha's heart skipped a beat. "Really? I can't believe it." Dr. Carter nodded. "It's time for your new smile. Are you ready to see it?" Martha took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Dr. Carter carefully adjusted the final part of the process, and when he was done, he turned the chair toward the mirror. Martha stared at her reflection, her breath catching in her throat. For the first time in years, she saw a smile that was bright, natural, and perfect. Her new teeth looked so real, so beautiful. It was like a dream come true. Tears filled her eyes as she touched her face, feeling the smooth surface of her new teeth. She couldn't stop smiling. "It's amazing," she whispered, almost unable to believe it was her. Dr. Carter smiled warmly. "You did it, Martha. Your new smile is all yours." Liz, who had been waiting outside, rushed in at the sound of her mother's voice. When she saw Martha's smile, she gasped in surprise and joy. "Mom, you look incredible," Liz said, hugging her tightly. "I knew you would look amazing. But this is beyond what I imagined." Martha laughed, wiping away the happy tears. "I can't believe it. I feel like a new person." As Martha looked at herself in the mirror, she realized that this journey had been more than just about her teeth. It had been about rediscovering her strength, trusting in herself, and taking a chance on something she once thought was impossible. And now, standing in front of the mirror with her new smile, she felt like she had finally found herself again. With her daughter by her side and a smile that made her feel confident, Martha knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. She had a bright future ahead, and for the first time in a long time, she was ready to face it with her head held high.